What's going on YouTube? It's Giga here, and today I'm bringing you 5 more Series 10 rental teams. So some important things to note is that my teams from last month are still live. So if you want to see a team featuring Zacian, Calyrex-Shadow, Solgaleo, Ho-Oh, or Palkia, would highly recommend checking out there. Also, please make sure to stay tuned at the end where I will talk about the giveaway for how you can win some free shiny Pokemon. So one more thing before I get started, please check out the description below. There is a giant document which has all of the pace as well as rental codes, as well as all sorts of relevant calcs for this team. So if you're wondering like, oh, why was something EV'd a certain way, the information for that will be in the document. Certain standard things like Regieleki I chose not to include because it's just like, it's max speed, max special attack, it hits really hard. So looking at this first team, it is a Kyogre team. This was kind of inspired by Santino's team. I did have a Choice Scarf Kyogre originally, but one of the changes I made as a result of seeing him was give it a little bit more speed to outspeed Pokemon at 150 speed with a Choice Scarf. It also will outspeed any, any 113s under Tailwind, and so that's what I really wanted. It is a pretty standard Choice Scarf Kyogre with Water Spout, Scald, Thunder, and Ice Beam, just really taking advantage of the power that Kyogre has, really can hit very hard, and like I said, will outspeed other Kyogres at 150 or similar Pokemon. Regieleki, very standard. We do have Thunder just because of the fact that we are in rain and we do want to hit very, very hard. Incineroar, pretty standard set with Parting Shot, Fake Out, Snarl, and Flare Blitz, just with the idea that it is a very great supportive option. It can help deal with Calyrex-Shadow as well as just Zacian and other sort of tricky matches that we may run into along the way. Next up, this is an idea from Santino's team. It is going to be that Power Whip, that Wide Lens Serena. I think the ability to have Triple Axle hit 99 accuracy is so incredibly huge. This Serena is trained to be at 113 speed, just with the idea that, hey, you want to outspeed base 150s in Tailwind. It also will outspeed Calyrex. It also is going to be strong enough to KO Kyogre with Power Whip. Triple Axle will obviously get rid of Landorus. We are strong enough that we do have a guaranteed KO onto Calyrex with Payback. And finally, we do have the ability to survive a +2 Dazzling Gleam from Xerneas. We can survive a Sheer Force Sludge Bomb from Landorus, which I thought was a very important calculation. We are going to be able to also survive things like an Astral Barrage from Calyrex-Shadow as well as a U-Turn. So yeah, pretty standard. Finally, we do have Tornadus. Tornadus is going to have pretty much standard Tailwind support. We did invest a little bit of bulk, mainly to be able to survive an Astral Barrage from Calyrex. That was really the main sort of thing that I was looking to hit. And also, we still are strong enough that we will, for the most part, be having a 2-hit KO onto a Rillaboom with Hurricane. And then finally, we do have Escavalier. Escavalier has a lot of really good defensive options. It can survive a +2 Astral Barrage. It can survive a +2 Moonblast from Xerneas, which is a 3-hit KO. It can survive an Incineroar's Flare Blitz if the Incineroar has 4 attack in the rain. And also it can survive a Sacred Sword from a lot of variants of Zacian. And similarly, it can KO Calyrex-Shadow with Knockoff. We do have Iron Head as a guaranteed 2-hit KO onto Xerneas. However, Xerneas is not KOing us with Moonblast. We are able to pick up knockouts onto standard Rillaboom sets. And finally, we are able to have a pretty good chance at 2-hit KOing most Zacians with Drill Run, depending on the spread. So this is probably the most sort of meta team with a lot of very powerful options on how to deal with stuff like that. So first team up is Kyogre. So looking at the next one, we do have a Dialga team. This is kind of similar, if some of you remember, to the Dialga Ditto team I had made a while back. I did try and make some changes to it just to make it a little bit more competitive and kind of more of what I think a Dialga team should look like. So this is a fairly offensive Dialga. Once again, we are trying to outspeed Scarfed 150s under Tailwind. So this, I think, hits 113 speed, so we will hit 226 in the Tailwind. And then we are just pretty strong. We do have the ability with Draco Meteor to hit KO a Kyogre. That is even with the -2 drop from Draco Meteor. We also do have a guaranteed KO onto Xerneas without the Geomancy boost, as well as a 50% chance to KO Calyrex-Shadow with Draco Meteor, while it will get KO'd on its own if it is holding a Life Orb. In terms of defensive calcs, we are able to survive things like a Mystic Water Kyogre Water Spout, and it is a 30% chance to 2-hit KO, so a pretty good chance of living. We can live a Dazzling Gleam from a +2 Xerneas, however we cannot live a Moonblast. And finally, we are able to live a +1 Calyrex Astral Barrage with Life Orb, so I thought that was really important. Next up, Ditto. Really not much to say about it. Ditto copies things. I thought the Focus Sash was a little bit more important just because of the flexibility that gives you in terms of changing moves, and also it really helps you deal when you want to copy something more supportive, something like an Incineroar, so you can go for Fake Out and then change out moves. So I thought that was sort of the best option. So looking at Thundurus, I did want something that was able to eat some pretty big hits, like a Behemoth Blade from Zacian. It also can survive a Moonblast from Xerneas very comfortably. It is in fact a 3-hit KO after leftovers, and it can survive not 100% of the time, but 80% of the time it will survive a +1 what is it called, Astral Barrage from Calyrex. So just really giving you some options before you can fire off some really good supportive moves. We do have Thunderbolt for damage, Scary Face over Thunder Wave, just so we can potentially like Scary Face our own side under Trick Room, and finally Eerie Impulse, really just to deal with a lot of the big special threats in the field. So next up, we do have Entei. Entei is holding the Assault Vest, which I think is really important. It is going to be able to outspeed max speed Xerneas, which is really important, as this really is our answer to a lot of big things like like Xerneas, Calyrex as well, and Zacian. So we are able to have a 3-hit KO, which does sound a little bit terrifying onto standard 4 and 0 Xerneas, but that is never going to 3-hit KO us in return, or it is going to 3-hit KO us in return. So if we make the first hit before they Geomancy, we will win that battle versus a Xerneas. We do have a guaranteed 2-hit KO onto even fairly defensive Zacians, so that is always a really good position to be in. And we do have a 50% chance to 2-hit KO Calyrex-Shadow with Sacred Fire. Similarly, we do have the option of going for things like Snarl if we just want to lower the special attack of that. And similarly, we do have a guaranteed KO from Zacian with Sacred Sword, and we are able to have a 3-hit KO from a standard Calyrex Astral Barrage, which gives us, in my opinion, the best chance of survivability. We also do have Stone Edge pretty much exclusively for Incineroar. It also does help deal with things like Volcarona. However, Volcarona isn't too much of an issue for this team. Next up, we do have Whimsicott. Whimsicott mainly is just to set up Tailwind and to give us the best way of dealing with things like Calyrex. There's really not too much to say about Whimsicott. There is just the Encore, which is pretty nice for locking opponents into things. And finally, we do have Quagsire. Quagsire, I think, is a very interesting pick in the meta, but I think it does really well just due to the fact that so many things are trying to set up, right? You have Zacian, which gets the automatic boost. You have Calyrex getting the boost. You have Xerneas, and so this I thought was a really good option where it is able to survive big hits like a Play Rough from Zacian isn't going to do too much. It comfortably can eat an Astral Barrage from Calyrex. It also has a very good job of dealing with Xerneas as well, and is able to do big damage with things like Scald if it wants to fight a like Calyrex or Xerneas to try and get burned and get some really good chip without worrying about those defensive boosts, as well as it does have Counter. I thought Counter was a really great option because it does give you your best chance of beating Calyrex, right? I mean, not Calyrex, Zacian. Because of the fact that Zacian is going to hit you with something strong, you're able to hit it back, and in most cases, Zacian is going to be a 3-hit KO onto you. And so having that really strong damage onto it will let you, in most cases, win that 1v1. And finally, we do have Protect just to get some HP, Protect and Recover, mainly just to get HP back with leftovers as we kind of try and play things out. So next team up, we have a Yveltal team. So this is actually the standard Assault Vest Yveltal. I thought it just was a really strong option. It has a lot of really good defensive matchups into a lot of things, and it also is pretty strong offensively. It has really great matchups into things like Kyogre, because of the fact that it will just soak a ton of hits and can get off stuff like Snarl. It can help deal with Rillaboom. It can help deal with Incineroar. It also has a pretty decent matchup into Groudon, and yeah, is able to take a fair amount of hits. It can also survive a Thunderbolt from Regieleki, which I thought was really just an important calculation to know. The main thing it deals well with is going to be Calyrex-Shadow, and it does struggle with the rest of the big four, right? It doesn't have the best matchup into Zacian because of the fact that Zacian can beat it. It doesn't always have the best matchup into Kyogre. Yes, it can survive and go for a Snarl, but there's not really much after that. And Xerneas obviously is going to beat Yveltal, which is why we're going to skip a little bit down to Shedinja. I thought Shedinja was just a really great partner for Yveltal due to the fact that the only restricted that Shedinja really has to worry about from the big four is Calyrex, and obviously Zacian is going to resist all of Calyrex's attacks any day of the week, and now we have a really good answer into most things because Zacian is not going to be able to hit this, Kyogre's not going to be able to hit this, Xerneas isn't going to be able to hit this, so we have a really strong option. We also are going to be able to two-hit KO Calyrex-Shadow, so in the event that we want to even have Shedinja in, we do have Shadow Sneak to help deal with that. Next up, we do have Rillaboom. This is a Rose Incense variant of Rillaboom. It is similar to the standard max HP, max attack. We did just shift a little bit of attack into special defense just because I found a lot of the time that Rillaboom doesn't necessarily need max attack. And we are still getting a lot of the relevant one-hit KOs as well as two-hit KOs. Like we're still KOing things like Kyogre. We still have a two-hit KO onto Xerneas as well as Calyrex, and now with the extra special defensive bulk, we are able to survive things like a +2 Moonblast from, or not +2 Moonblast. We unfortunately will go down to a +2 Moonblast from Xerneas, but we are able to survive an Astral Barrage from Calyrex. We also are able to survive an Ice Beam from Kyogre. So just having that little extra bulk, in my opinion, really helps Rillaboom while not taking away too much from it. Next up, we do have Choice Scarf Dragovich. Pretty standard. It hits really hard, and I thought that was just a really nice option to have. It is unfortunately not going to outspeed Calyrex just due to the fact that Dragovich isn't the fastest thing on the field, but the things that it can outspeed, it is going to hit very hard into. It also can survive an Astral Barrage from Calyrex, so you do threaten the crunch back. Next up, we do have Stakataka. This is once again the Lonely variant. It is pretty straightforward. It will get the attack boost from a Beast Boost. It just wants to set up Trick Room and go for big hits there. It is your main answer for Xerneas in the event that you don't have Shedinja. And just can really turn the tide in your favor against a lot of some of the faster restricteds like Calyrex. And then finally, we do have, what is it called? We do have Toxapex. I thought Toxapex is overall just a really strong option in the meta, having good answers for Kyogre with things like Wide Guard and also its defensive typing. It also has good answers for Zacian just because of the fact that Zacian isn't going to be able to do too much damage into it. And I'm trying to actually find where are my calcs for Toxapex. I don't actually know if I included any of them, which would definitely be oh no, here they are. So yeah, this is a similar to a pretty standard set. We are able to 3-hit KO standard Stakataka, which is pretty relevant, but in terms of the defensive side, a 44 attack Zacian with Behemoth Blade is a 3-hit KO onto Toxapex, which means that we have a really good chance of surviving it as we can try and get a burn onto it. We can survive a Thunder from Kyogre, so even if they are running a Thunder variant, we will be able to take that very well. And we also can survive a Thunderbolt from Regieleki, so having the ability to survive some of these really big hits that can threaten Toxapex and then fight back with things like Scald as well as Wide Guard is really nice. And Toxic also for stalling out some bigger matches versus things like Incineroar or Rillaboom, where it really is going to be this kind of slow and steady race to put on Toxic and say, hey, if you're going to go for Fake Out, that's fine. You're going to eat some Toxic damage and really let that build up over time. So moving on, we do next have Calyrex-Ice. So this is a little bit of a play on the standard Calyrex-Ice team. We are going with Oranguru. So one important thing to note with this Calyrex is that it is going to underspeed Oranguru by exactly 1 point, which means that if you set up Trick Room, you are going to be able to attack first. So an ideal turn 1 would be Calyrex next to Oranguru. You set up Trick Room with Calyrex and you go for a Brutal Swing with Oranguru, and then you can fire off 2 consecutive Glacial Lances. Other than that, we do have high horsepower on Calyrex. It's a very standard Calyrex set to deal with things like Incineroar and things that can eat Glacial Lance fairly well. We do have Ally Switch as well as a second Trick Room for Oranguru, just to like create a scenario where if we do need to attack with Calyrex the first turn, we can do it that. Once again, we do have Lonely Sakataka with Trick Room as well. So we have 3 Trick Room setters on the team, which I think is pretty important. This is a very, very slow team. And so having a pretty much guaranteed way of setting that up, I think is very important. And then, yeah, Stack just hits hard, is a very good, nice physical option in Trick Room to work alongside Calyrex. Next up, we do have Volcarona. This is a fairly standard defensive variant, mainly for dealing with things like Zacian. We do have Rocky Helmet, so if we Rage Powder into something like an Incineroar, we are going to be able to do damage into it. We also do have Heat Wave to hit back, and finally Struggle Bug, mainly just to lower special attack on things like Xerneas, or catch something on a switch like a Calyrex. Moving along, we have Pincurchin. So Pincurchin, I was very mixed about, but I really appreciate just all the damage it can do. I think this thing is an incredibly hard hitter. It is able to KO a standard Calyrex with Sucker Punch, and then Rising Voltage, because of the electric terrain, is going to hit very, very hard. It is a 2-hit KO onto pretty much all variants of Zacian. It is going to be able to KO most variants of Xerneas as well. And similarly, like even Incineroar, for the most part, is going to be 2-hit KO unless it is going to be an Assault Vest variant. And similarly, Pincurchin is able to guaranteed survive an Astral Barrage from Calyrex. It is going to be a 2-hit KO from +1 Zacian with Sacred Sword on most variants. And similarly, a standard Xerneas going for a Moonblast will not be able to KO. So just wanted to get as much damage as possible. Rising Voltage is just incredibly hard hitting, and the Electric Surge is huge, mainly because of fear of things like Amoonguss, right? Where Amoonguss has the ability to go for Spore as you're trying to set up Trick Room, and this really prevents that. So in the event we don't need Stakataka, we can have Pincurchin and have a lot of flexibility there. And finally, we do have Urshifu. This is the bulky variant that I'm pretty sure was featured on Adi's channel by Kunal, and I'm pretty sure he got it from someone. And I actually have really fallen in love with these bulky variants of Urshifu. I think that it is really interesting to see what it can do, and this just lets it survive quite a bit more hits, and also it still hits equally hard with it actually hits harder with its water attacks holding Mystic Water than the standard set. So you suddenly have a lot more bulk to work with, and I feel like you're not really giving up too much in terms of speed. So this is what I thought was a really nice option to kind of close out the team. It also helps deal with Intimidators due to the fact that you are obviously not going to be caring about Intimidate due to the fact that Surging Strikes is a critical hit. So this is the Calyrex team, and finally moving on to the Zekrom team. So this one I definitely had quite a bit of fun with. This is a Zekrom team featuring Chansey, and so there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. So I'm going to talk about this team, I guess, a little bit out of order. The main thing to focus on is going to be this Meowstic with Prankster, due to the fact that it gets Skill Swap. And what Skill Swap lets you do is it lets you get into really strong positions with the rest of your team. For example, you can switch in Incineroar and go for a Skill Swap onto that spot. So Incineroar switches in, will fire off the Intimidate, then Skill Swap will cause Meowstic to have Intimidate, which will cause a second Intimidate to go off. So your opponents will be at -2, and now you have a Prankster Incineroar, which can go for priority Will-O-Wisp or priority Parting Shot. So that can really cripple an opponent before they're able to do too much. Similarly, you can fire off Skill Swap onto Chansey to give it priority with Minimize and Soft Boiled. So in the event that, hey, you need to recover before an opponent attacks, you have that option. You can set up Minimize before they're able to go with things. And it really helps set up Chansey. Similarly with Shuckle, one really powerful turn 1 play is turn 1 Skill Swap onto Shuckle, and then Power Split onto an opponent's really strong attacker, so Shuckle now is in a strong position, and then you swap out Meowstic into Chansey, and then you're able to guard split immediately using that Prankster onto Chansey. So you have set up your Chansey while you're forcing an opponent's switch, and just like overall can really set up from there. So while Chansey isn't necessarily the most entertaining strategy to watch, I thought it was just a really good set for this team, mainly because of the flexibility you do get with Prankster and Meowstic. So looking at Zekrom I think is really great for filling out a lot of the role, just because of the fact that it does deal a lot of damage. With Choice Scarf, you are going to outspeed a lot of those you are going to outspeed 150s once again, and you have a pretty solid 2-hit KO onto most restricteds. You do really have to worry about mainly Groudon, but even then, like, you are in still such a good position, and yeah, Groudon is one of the biggest threats to this team. So this is a Chople Berry. Like, Groudon and physical fighting types are a really big threat, which is why we do have Chople Berry on the Incineroar, just so you can take things like a close combat from Mineshaw and then get off a Will-O-Wisp onto it so it can't do too much damage. Or you can deal with Urshifu Dark, or you can take Zacian Sacred Sword. So I really wanted to give the team the best survivability so Chansey can set up once you get rid of those big fighting types. And finally, we do have Tapu Fini. This is a very defensive variant as well, mainly just because of Groudon. Groudon, like I said, does give this team a lot of trouble. It is physical, so it can deal with Chansey. It does have Precipice Blades for Zekrom as well as Incineroar, and then, yeah, Meowstic and Chuckle aren't really going to like it. So Tapu Fini being able to threaten big damage with Grass Knot as well as Nature's Madness onto it is huge. Tapu Fini also eats up fighting type attacks and is able to threaten back with Moonblast and then Leftovers, really giving it some strong recovery. So these are all 5 of the teams for this month. Once again, just quickly looking at them, a reminder that the teams for last month are still available for download, so make sure to check those out if you want some other restricteds. And now let's talk about the giveaway. So last month we did a giveaway where I gave away 3 shiny Pokemon that were fully battle ready for people, and similarly we are doing that this month. So the way to enter is you have 2 ways of entering. One, you can comment on a video. Each video you comment on gets you 1 vote or 1 entry, or you can share yourself using the team, whether that's via Reddit or YouTube or Twitter, just some way of saying, hey, I'm using this team in a public forum. And each time you give an example of that, that is 3 votes. And the contest, I think what we'll do is we'll run until the next rental team video. So you have every month when we release these teams, we will also mention the winners from the previous video. So look out for that. And so obviously people want to know what are the prizes for this month. So for first place, we are giving away a fully battle ready shiny Rillaboom. In second place, we are giving away a shiny Volcarona. And finally, in third place, we are giving away a shiny Whimsicott. So all the details for that will be in the description below. Similarly, the Google Doc with all of the relevant calcs as well as all the team descriptions will be in the description below. Or will be, will be in the description below. But yeah, other than that, I hope people enjoy the teams. We are going to be using them in the next couple videos. And yeah, until next time, I hope all of you are wonderful, and I'll see you then.